President Donald Trump orders military exercises in the Caribbean Sea, and the Venezuelan leader, Nicolás Maduro, asks that conflict be avoided. He says he'll defend himself if attacked.
The Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro has decided to cross yet another dangerous line by sending members of the criminal faction Tren de Arágua to Brazil. This maneuver clearly shows his attempt to shield criminals who are already on the United States' target list, while also exposing the fragility of Brazil's borders. With the American crackdown in the Caribbean Sea, Maduro has lost space for his maritime drug trafficking routes and is now using Brazilian territory as an escape route. The Southern Command has intensified pressure around Venezuela, blocking the movement of suspicious ships, monitoring the airspace with F-35 fighter jets, and using drones to track routes. The strategic positioning of a nuclear submarine aims to contain underwater threats and even deter more hostile actions. This operation, called Final Circle, practically suffocated the Chavista regime, which depends directly on drug trafficking to stay afloat. Without freedom of movement at sea, Maduro is betting on land infiltration, pushing criminals into Brazil. Welcome to Life in the Barracks.
3 people are arrested during the police operation against human trafficking on the border between Brazil and Venezuela.
If you want to save Venezuela, in a bloodbath, in a fratricidal civil war, the result of the fascists, let's ensure the greatest success, the greatest victory.
The Arágua train organization gained strength amid Venezuela's social crisis. Hunger and unemployment became fuel for the group to recruit even ordinary citizens, who, in their desperation, became drug mules. Today, this faction is already involved in several areas: drugs, human trafficking, and money laundering. The problem is that now this criminal branch has crossed our border, exposing the vulnerability of Brazilian national sovereignty. Determined to neutralize Maduro once and for all, Donald Trump secured support from strategic countries in the region. Paraguay will receive a permanent FBI base. Ecuador approved in Congress the installation of a United States military base, and Guyana offered territory for troop training. Even Puerto Rico, a United States territory, has become an advanced base for recently arrived F-35 SE.
If Venezuela is attacked in any way, it will enter a stage of armed struggle. Mr. President Donald Trump, thank you for the plan we have, President A, that we have had and still have.
The current reality is that Maduro is surrounded on almost all sides, but he finds a kind of breathing space in Brazil. This ideological closeness with the current Brazilian president gives him the confidence to act almost freely on our border. While the other neighboring countries strengthen their alliance with the United States, Brazil, under the leadership of the current president, remains on the opposite side. True to the saying, silence means consent. Worsening things, Maduro maintains his expansionist ambitions for Guyana's Essequibo region. In fact, there are numerous reports that he is even considering claiming the city of Pacaraima in Roraima. The justification is the large Venezuelan population in the city and claims of neglect by the Brazilian government. This narrative is used as a political and military weapon to justify possible incursions. The alert around Venezuela was raised after the episode in which Maduro sent 2 F-16 fighter jets to fly over and threaten the United States ship destroyer. Jason Dunham positioned in the Caribbean. Trump's order was clear. Any aircraft that puts American ships in the region at risk will be authorized to be shot down. The message was direct, and the psychological impact on the Venezuelan generals was immediate, including some high-ranking military officers sending their relatives to other countries, such as Nicaragua and Cuba. The American press described Maduro's act of sending the F-16s as an empty show of force. The Pentagon reported that the Venezuelan aircraft tried to interfere with anti-drug operations, but did not pose an immediate risk. Even so, the response came right after. 10 F-35 fighter jets took off for Puerto Rico and positioned themselves as the front line in the Caribbean. With this move, Maduro saw the game had changed. The F-35s are next-generation fighter jets, capable of carrying out stealth attacks, crossing enemy airspace without being detected. For a cornered and fearful leader like Maduro, knowing that he could be targeted at any moment was enough to change his rhetoric. In a recent statement, the Chavista dictator even called for an end to the American offensive, clearly asking for a truce. As Arágua-trained criminals enter Brazil, the Southern Command may boost its presence in the South Atlantic. It is possible that soon, destroyers, spy planes, and next-generation fighter jets will begin operating near the Brazilian coast. And this raises a troubling question for the Brazilian people. To what extent will the current president of Brazil be able to maintain his inaction in the face of infiltration by criminals connected to Maduro? Ignoring this reality could be costly in terms of sovereignty and national security. Donald Trump, however, has made it clear he won't go easy on anyone. The strategy is to suffocate Chavismo economically and militarily until Maduro is forced to give in. But the need for a military incursion inside Venezuela has become increasingly necessary. Military analysts believe that Brazil has become a point of vulnerability in the United States' regional plan. While regional neighbors offer support to the Trump administration with bases and military cooperation, Brazil canceled joint operations, creating an opening for Southern Command to also begin surrounding trafficking routes around the Brazilian coast. The situation is concerning as it makes Brazil a secondary route for Maduro's regime, when in fact, shouldn't we be mobilizing the Brazilian armed forces to support the actions of the United States? The American forces do not hide that they are ready for quick actions. F-35 pilots are being trained in low-altitude flights, surgical strikes, and hostile territory infiltrations, considering the region's tropical environment. The F-35 pilots based in Puerto Rico have been receiving training focused on precise attacks against surface, bunkers, and air counteroffensive actions. Adjusting to the particularities of the region, since authorization for an attack operation can be given at any moment. Brazil, on the other hand, faces an internal dilemma, as the Brazilian president avoids classifying groups like Primeiro Comando da Capital and Comando Vermelho as narco-terrorists, something that could pave the way for a stronger partnership with the United States in the fight against organized crime. This political choice leaves Brazil vulnerable at a time when transnational crime is on the rise. If the offensive against Maduro advances, we may see coordinated actions in the Caribbean, Guyana, and near Brazilian territory. This puts Brazil in a delicate position. Either the country strengthens its international cooperation policy, or it risks becoming the stage for foreign operations. The next few days will be decisive, and what started as a military movement in the Caribbean could turn into an operation with continental reach. The current Brazilian government needs to understand that its omission creates room for others to make decisions in its place. Right here in the comments if you want to, an exclusive video showing how the F-35 pilots are being prepared for possible operations against Maduro, and even for future actions around the Brazilian coast. At Vida, the Barracks keeps you updated on all military news. Leave your like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos appearing on your screen. Forward combatants, until next time.